I need to start today by being upfront with you about what this episode really is because it's not like the others, I promise you. But it's still connected. This is not a monthly theme episode, not a series, it's not a part of a series, it's not a week one or anything. It is a complete standalone and anchor, nonetheless. A moment between everything we have covered from April to June and everything that's coming this summer and beyond. And I am going to ask you to stay with me through something that is going some places. The SQJ Chronicles has not gone yet, academically, historically, and theologically. Let me reintroduce myself. I am a devoted, unapologetic Black woman who loves herself some Jesus. I love Jesus for real, for real. I am by no means a preacher or theologian. Oh, my dad. If it was possible, I would be rolling over his. He would be rolling over his grave. Theologian. I'm gonna leave this in here because people don't believe I got a speech impediment. I do. It's pronounced correctly in my head, but theologian. But y'all know what I'm talking about. Sorry, Dad, Dr. Johnson. I know you are a Catholic. You're a trained theologian. Is that it? I'm not an academic. Well, at least not a full blown one. Yeah, at least Ella is insider for the people that know. You know. And if I am one, I ain't an articulate one, clearly. But to God be the glory. But I do have a background in environmental science and studies. I have studied communities, particularly Black communities, in different aspects of that with my urban planning degree, and I studied nonprofit work and worked with nonprofit work. Oh, and governmental work as well, but we're not getting into that. I am someone who has spent a lot of time thinking about systems, how they are built, how they are function, how they affect the people who lived inside them, and what it takes to genuinely change them. And what I want to do today is bring all of that together because I'm an interdisciplinary researcher person. I connect the dots and all that. That's what I do. Bring all this together with the word of God, because I'm an ambassador of Christ. Everything I do is rooted in the word, And with the history of the Black community, my community, and see what happens when these different dimensions, things, aspects, subjects, areas converge together. So stay with me on this journey, Mike, we gonna get some out of it together. You gonna get some out of it, I'm gonna get some out of it. Boom, let's see. This one is going to require something from you, but I believe it's going to be worth every minute of it. So stay with me. Let me quickly trace the thread that brought us together because this episode does not make full sense without it. In April, we asked the foundational question: do you know what you were actually called to do? If you ain't watched April series, go back, Go on back. Go on back. Cause baby, April came for us. Okay. We named purpose. We confronted fear, doubt, and the delay that dresses itself up as wisdom. We called you forth into the assignment God placed in you before you were even born. Okay, spring forward. That's the series, girl. That's the series. That's the series, y'all. In May, we went in the mirror. We asked whether you believe you were worthy of that calling. We went all the way back. I mean, all the way back to Genesis 1, talking about made in the image of God. I think that was week 1 of May series. We named every distortion, racism, colorism, comparison, competition, and unrealistic expectations that has tried to cover that image. And we received the truth. You are not a reconstruction. No. You are a restoration. Come on here in June. The series we just wrapped up. We named the systems, the external architecture of oppression, all 5 faces, all 4 levels. We walked through Exodus and found that Pharaoh's Egypt was not just ancient history. No, it wasn't just ancient. It was a blueprint. It was a blueprint that has been rebuilt in different forms in every generation since we found our Goshen, and we said not one hoof stays behind. And as a sneak peek until July, we will go on the inside. We are identify the systems that are built in the mind, the mindsets, and the mentality, and confront the internalized oppression that survives liberation. Oh, I'm so excited for July. Y'all just don't understand. I get geeked out about the story stuff like this. So for 4 months, 4 layers, purpose, worth, external liberation and internal liberation, because you need both of them. You know what I'm saying? And now the question that this episode is going to sit in is this: given all of that, given everything that we have named and going to name, everything we have dismantled, everything we have been working toward, where does the Black community actually sit right now in real structural lasting power? Not perceived power, not simulated progress, but real power. Okay? So let's sit with that before we go anywhere else. Okay? What does real power look like to you? All right, you thought about it? All right, we finna go on little journey, so stick with me. It's gonna be an unexpected journey, but it's gonna be a beautiful journey. So yeah, I hope you enjoy this tweak. It just, my brain works a little different. We finna go on a little urban planning tour, and we're gonna connect this to Black empowerment, Black community. Okay, y'all getting a sneak peek at how my brain, my planning brain works. All right, and so in 1969, a woman named Sherry Arnstein, a public policy and analyst, published a paper called "A Ladder of Citizen Participation" in the Journal of American Institute of Planners. It became one of the most cited frameworks. I've even cited it because I had to take class called Citizen Participation in my master's program in urban planning, in community development, and sociology. And the reason it has lasted more than 50 years is because it names something that communities had been experiencing for so long without having a clear, identifiable framework to describe it. Okay. Einstein proposed a ladder, ladder, 8 rungs, 3 tiers, and the central argument was simple and devastating. There is a critical difference between going through the motions of participation and having actual redistributed power. And most of what gets called community participation, most of what systems offer communities in the name of inclusion, that'll require a whole nother episode. I can't do that. Is not real power at all. It is the performance of power, while the actual power stays exactly where it is. I want to walk through the 3 tiers because I think when we lay them out clearly, you are going to recognize every single level from the lived Black experience in America. The bottom tier is called non-participation. 2 rungs: manipulation and therapy. All right. Now, I ain't talking about therapy like going to your psychiatrist and what's the other one? Psychologist. Psychologist. Wording is hard. I promise you. I'm gonna leave it in here because listen, I ain't trying to be perfect. Listen, I'm flawed up all the way. Or mental health therapists and all that, because that is needed. This is a whole. We ain't talking about that. So let me explain. These are not participation at all. Manipulation is when the system uses the community as a rubber stamp for decisions already made. You are brought to the table not to have input, but to legitimize what was already decided without you. Therapy is when the system treats the community's legitimate grievances as a quote-unquote psychological problem or quote-unquote mental illness. But it ain't. It's real. Okay? To be, they treat it like that because to manage it rather than a structural problem to be addressed. You feel me? Instead, let me say it like this. Instead of changing the conditions, the system actively decides to pacify the problem. How about this? Using workshops and sensitivity trainings as a vehicle to promote compliance as opposed to addressing the problem. How about this? Instead of addressing systemic issues like poor housing conditions, poor housing conditions, poor living conditions, poor wages, economic gaps, police brutality, inequitable access to education and transportation. Instead of addressing those issues like that, leaders and officials design, create and organize, what you say, sessions and groups to get citizens to quote unquote adjust their values and their attitudes. Adjust the cities. They got the grievances. They got the very real grievances to adjust it, and instead of the cities, it has to adjust instead of the leaders addressing the issues. Okay, anything that redirects the energy of the grievances of these real issues without changing the power structure that produced it. What that sound like? That sound like a distraction. That sounds like shifting the blame. That sounds like gaslighting to me. But what did I know? What this old little girl know from sharing Mississippi? What she know? The middle tier, she called it tokenism, 3 rungs, informing, consultation, and I forgot how to pronounce this word. Hold on. And placation. There you go. I got it. Listen. This is how I am every day. So I'm sorry. For the ones who don't know this out of me, I'm goofy for real. But the Lord has called me to do a serious work. So we're going to be serious. Informant is when the system tells the community what is happening, but the information flows one way and there is no mechanism for the community's response to change anything. Consultation is when the community is asked for input, surveys, town halls, public comment periods, but there is no obligation for that the input is acted on. Then the application is when you got a few community members are placed on advisory boards or committees. Lord, I know how to pronounce that. Given enough access to feel included, but not enough power to determine outcomes. The decisions still happen above them. Listen, y'all. I'm a writer, not an orator. So hang with me. And y'all hang with me. I'm going to become a better orator. You know. And the top tier of the ladder, citizen participation ladder, it's called citizen power. This at the top. 3 we got partnership, delegated power, and citizen control. Partnership is when the community has genuine negotiating authority. When the power to make decision is shared rather than merely consulted. Delegated power is when the community holds dominant decision-making authority over a specific program or policy area. And citizen control is full governance. The community manages, directs, and is fully accountable for its own programs and institutions without requiring external approval. 8 rungs. And Einstein's argument was not that every community deserved to be at the top immediately. Her argument was that the lower rungs were being sold to communities as participation, when they were actually the opposite of participation. They were control dressed up as inclusion. Now, I want to apply this lens to the Black community experience in America. And I want to be honest that what I am about to cover is only a fraction of the full history, because it's so much. I'll be here all day, all night, and I still won't be to scratch the surface. This could be a year's worth of content on its own and still won't be through. Because it's so deeply rooted. But I want to give you enough to see the pattern clearly. From the beginning, from the middle passage, and the institution of chattel slavery, the black community was placed below the bottom of the rung. Not manipulation, not therapy, below the ladder entirely. We weren't even on the ladder, baby. None, because we weren't considered people. We were considered property. And I beg you to say we weren't even considered property because a dog is considered property. And okay, I'm not gonna. Not gonna go there. The complete animal is considered property, and we ain't the way we was treated. Okay, I said I wasn't gonna go there. The complete absence of any participatory standing in the society. Their labor was building. Reconstruction briefly moved Black Americans up the ladder. Black men voted. Saying black men, because back in this time during Reconstruction, white women didn't have the right to vote. So black women didn't have the right to vote. And I ain't gonna even go into reading the Reconstruction period where black men had the temporary right to vote. Then you lost their post-Reconstruction period. Then we didn't get the white women got the right to vote in 1920. Then 1965, black men and women got the right to vote. And today, that is being charged the Voting Acts of 1965 in 2026. They should have implemented a public thing, but a permanent thing. But but with the President Lyndon B. Johnson, he wasn't. I ain't got time for all that tangent, but listen, 2026, with this Voting Rights Act and Sections 2 and 5, all that good stuff, and all this redistricting and gerrymandering, I can't go down that tangent. Not today at least, because I would never get through with my main focus at hand. But y'all need to wake up. If you sleep, you need to wake up, because things is all happening. All right, let me get back to what black men voted during the Reconstruction area. Black politicians were elected to Congress and state legislature. Black institution was built. Black communities began to develop genuine economic and civic power. For a moment, a brief, extraordinary moment, the upper rungs were within reach. And then the system responded. Jim Crow, black codes, convict leasing, which was slavery by another name, legally sanctioned and economically profitable, restrictive covenants that prohibited black families from purchasing property in certain neighborhoods, redlining, the deliberate exclusion of black communities from federally backed mortgage programs that built the white middle class, the systemic denial of access to the generational wealth that home ownership produces. The black community was not just pushed back down the ladder was pulled out from underneath them, underneath us. What you talking about? And the fall was deliberate. The Great Migration moved hundreds of thousands of black Americans from the south to the northern and midwestern cities and in the west, because you got some people that went out west. Yes, not just seeking opportunity, but escaping the torrent of Jim Crow. And in those cities, the black belts emerged, not by choice, but by confinement. Restrictive covenants, discriminatory lending, and deliberate policy consecrated black families into specific geographic areas. Segregation as geography. The black community was hemmed in. And then urban renewal arrived in the 1950s and 60s. The federal government funded the demolition of black neighborhoods across the country in the name of progress and development. Entire communities, vibrant, self-sustaining, culturally rich black communities were bulldozed by highways, universities, and commercial developments. The people displaced were rarely relocated with equity or care. James Baldwin called it Negro removal, and he wasn't wrong. Wasn't wrong at all. This was not just urban planning. This was the manipulation wrong of Ornstein. I really can't remember how she pronounced it. Ladder in concrete and demolition equipment. The community was informed, not consulted, and what they were informed was that their neighborhood was already gone. The civil rights movement was arguably the most sustained and successful attempt in American history to climb this citizen participation ladder collectively. Keyword, I say arguably. From the boycotts to the sit-ins to the March on Washington to the Voting Rights Act of 1965, the movement forced the system to move black Americans from the non-participation tier towards tokenism. And in some cases toward the lower rings of citizen power. Legal segregation was dismantled. I got some thoughts on that, but I ain't got time. Voting rights were secured. Formal barriers were removed. Formal. Gotta be clear. This southern accent, or whatever accent. Cause somebody the other day, other month said I had a Baltimore accent, and I was completely caught off guard. But here is what the letter reveals about that moment. Formal access is not the same as distributed power. The civil rights movement won significant runs on the legal ladder. What it could not fully win, and what the system immediately worked to prevent, was the economic and institutional power that would have made legal victories durable. The Fair Housing Act of 1968 was passed 4 days after Dr. King was assassinated, and it was undermined almost immediately by the systems of lending, zoning, and development that continue to produce the same outcomes the laws were supposed to prevent. Integration presented the black community with one of its most complex and consequential latter moments. On one hand, integration opened access to institutions, spaces, and resources that had been deliberately withheld. On the other hand, it simultaneously dismantled many of the black institutions, schools, businesses, banks, neighborhoods that had been the community's own expressions of citizen power under segregation. Black teachers lost jobs when black students integrated to white schools. Black businesses lost customers when black customers gained access to white commercial spaces. The HBCUs that had trained black professionals under segregation faced new questions about their relevance and resources. Integration moved black Americans towards tokenism on one ladder while collapsing the citizen power structures they had built under another. And then white flight. As black Americans moved into previously all-white neighborhoods, often after decades of being legally prevented from doing so, white residents and white-owned businesses left, and critically, they took the tax base, the investment, the institutional resources, and the political influence with them. The neighborhood did not just change demographics. It was systematically divested. What had been a functional community became an underfunded one, seems like almost overnight. Not by accident, but by the pattern of disinvestment that follows black presence in American real estate with a consistency that is too systematic to be a coincidence. Gentrification is the most recent iteration, one of the most recent iteration of this pattern. The same neighborhoods that were redlined, defunded, and abandoned are now being rediscovered by developers, by investors, by a new generation of residents who want the location without the community that survived there. Property values rise. Long-term residents, often renters, often elevators. What? Let me rewind. I said often elevators. Where'd that come from? Long-term residents, often renters, often elderly, often the people who stayed through the disinvestment are displaced. The cultural institutions, the churches, the community organizations that were the connective tissue of the neighborhoods are priced out or demolished. And the community that built the character of the place is replaced by a community that is consuming it. This is not progress, beloveds. This is manipulation wrong. The manipulation wrong wearing a renovation permit. The prison system, which Michelle Alexander documented in The New Jim Crow, and which Brian Stevens has spent his career confronting is arguably the most sophisticated expression of the non-participation tier in contemporary American life. Mass incarceration disenfranchises. It removes people from their communities, from the labor market, from civic participation, from family structures. It concentrates the impact in Black and brown communities with a specificity that cannot be explained by crime rates alone. And it produces a permanent underclass. I don't like that. I don't believe it's gonna be permanent. That's something that's something that's yeah. Because a change gonna come. Okay. That's that's a side though. I had to dress that off camera. Where was I? People who have served their sentences but carry the legal, economic, and social consequences of a conviction for the rest of their lives. Below the latter, not by individual failure, but by design. Gerrymandering and districting have repeatedly been used to dilute Black voting power, just as it was becoming consecrated enough to be effective. The voting rights of 1965 was gutted. I ain't by the Supreme Court. I ain't gotta tell you about 2020 what happened this year, 2026. You should already know. And I did a little spiel earlier. Alright. But for go back a little over 10 years ago, look up the Supreme Court case Shelby County versus Holder. Where the decision opened the door to the wave of voter restrictions that had found this portion on Black voters. Now we got something what you call voter ID laws. Voter ID laws. Then we got polling place closures, purge voter rolls. The tools have changed over time. The wrong has stayed the same. Tools and tactics have changed over time. Same way. Non-participation. The non-participation one. And through it all, through every era, try not to get a consumed with emotion. Cause this is so real, y'all. We are living this right now. But through it all, through every era, every policy, every system, the Black community has demonstrated a resilience and continue to demonstrate and embody a resilience that their latter alone cannot fully account for. Because alongside every system designed to push the community down, the community was building. What were we building? The Black church, the HBCUs, Black Wall Street, the fraternal organizations, D9. Well, I ain't gonna talk too much on that. I'm not D9 affiliated. But and I ain't got nothing. I'm mutual on that because it's some controversial debate going on in the community, and I just think I'ma say this, and you ain't gonna hear no more about it. I think this debate about these organizations is a distraction because we got more serious issues going on by this of whether or not is it a sin or not to be a part of a D9 organization. Whatever your personal opinion, that's your personal issue. We got more pressing issues than this going on. It's a distraction. And a lot of these other viral moments we got going on. It's a distraction. Don't be deceived, beloveds. We got some real issues going on. There our liberties and freedom can be at risk. And I don't know about you. I'm finna stay free. I ain't going back. Going forward. Alright, and that's all I got to say on that. Wake up. Don't be distracted. Don't be fooled by the tactic of the enemy. Alright. That's just my 2 cents on that. Let me continue. The Mutual Aid Society, the civil rights organizations, the art, the music, the literature, the culture, another pause. For the ones that say black culture ain't got no culture, you lie. I ain't finna go on that tangent either. Cause baby, ooh-wee. We'll talk, that's another episode. The community was practicing citizen powers in its own institutions, even when the external systems denied it every wrong. This is the cross-generational, trans-generational progression of a people who refuse to be defined by the wrong the system assigned them. And it is the most important thing. The latter does not fully capture because Einstein's ladder describes the relationship between a community and an external system. It does not fully account for what a community builds within itself when the external system is hostile, and the black community has been building within itself for 400 years. All right. We gonna stop right here because I see I have made it almost to the 45-minute mark. So this we could consider this part 1 of our standalone episode, and we will drop part 2. This drops Tuesday, so I would say we will drop part 2. We can drop it Wednesday. So stay tuned until tomorrow. This is SQJ Chronicle will continue.